All right, everyone, get started with today's meeting. Before we do that, I want to acknowledge that the land on which we gather is Treaty 2 land, traditional territory of Anishinaabe, Cree, Ojibwe, Assiniboine, Dakota, and Dene peoples, and the homeland of the Red River Métis. We affirm our commitment to moving forward in partnership with Indigenous communities, including the national government of the Red River Métis, in a spirit of collaboration and reconciliation. Moved by Councillor Sobring and seconded by Deputy Mayor Loughlin, be resolved that the regular council meeting agenda be amended with the following additions and deletions. We have additions including the Manitoba News release regarding their flood recovery program, our declaration of a state of local emergency, the Parkland Municipal Flood Recovery Group information, and information regarding the Vermilion River floodway idea, and a couple deletions, the city manager's report for June, and the declaration of state of local emergency. So, all those in favor? Anyone opposed? Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Loughlin, seconded by Councillor Ray, that we accept the agenda as amended. Moved by Councillor Ray and seconded by Councillor Daly, be it resolved that Council waives the reading and accepts and approves the minutes from our council meeting of June the 22nd. All those in favor, please indicate. Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you. We'll go straight into the consent agenda. Got a number of action items. We've got 2 water accounts to be added to taxes. Roll number 0104100, $206.80. The owner did not pay the final water bill. And 0377400, $127.64. The previous tenant did not pay the final water bill. There are a couple of several filing items: Indigenous Tourism Manitoba newsletter, the Mountain View School Division News Digest at the end of June, Friendship Center's newsletter for July, the Parkland Chamber of Commerce Chamber Matters July letter, Growing Manitoba Ag newsletter of July, Multi-Material Stewardship 2025 annual report, Prairie Mountain Health options for medical care in Dauphin, Canada's National Ukrainian Festival regarding their 26 festival cancellation news release, and the Manitoba government's flood recovery program. Moved by Deputy Mayor Loughlin and seconded by Councillor Sobring that all items listed under the consent agenda be approved and form part of these minutes. All in favor? Motion is carried. Moved by Councillor Daly and seconded by Deputy Mayor Loughlin that we accept the corporate report from the Deputy City Manager. So Lisa, is there any highlights or anything in that report before we put it?
Yes, thank you, Mayor Bosiak. In June, I continued with considerable work on the city's comprehensive property enforcement bylaw package. I continued refinement of the property standards bylaw, general enforcement bylaw, administrative penalties bylaw, vacant and boarded buildings bylaw, derelict buildings bylaw, and related amendments that were required to the fees, fines, and charges bylaw. I finalized the overall enforcement framework, and I conducted a comprehensive legal review with the city's municipal lawyers just to obtain legal advice and recommendations prior to finalizing the bylaws. This project represents one of the most significant updates to the city's property enforcement framework in many years, and will provide clearer, more consistent, and more effective enforcement tools. So the bylaw package will be ready for Council's review next week at the Planning and Priorities Committee meeting of July 20th, and it can then proceed to first reading at the regular meeting of August 10th. I'd also like to note that the Downtown Safety Patrol pilot officially launched on July 7th, and licensed security officers from Classified Security Group are now conducting foot patrols Monday through Saturday, generally between 8 a.m. and 8 p.m., with varying shift times to help maximize their effectiveness. Patrols are conducted in pairs throughout the downtown core and the Dauphin Recreation Complex, and also whatever they're able to access of Vermilion Park, with the flexibility to respond to emerging issues and other public spaces as needed. The officers are taking a proactive, community-oriented approach by engaging with residents and businesses, assisting people where appropriate, and helping build positive relationships in the community. We're monitoring the pilot closely through real-time GPS tracking and detailed daily activity reports, and we'll continue to keep council updated as the pilot progresses. So if you see our patrol officers when you're out and about, please say hello and welcome them to Dauphin. Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa. Any questions for Lisa from anyone? Call for the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Motion is carried. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Sobring. Be resolved that the finance accounts being examined by council be hereby authorized and approved. We had 84 checks in the recent run, totaling $1,026,386.71. There were no voided checks. In the current or past range, we had 2 EFT payments totaling $17,202.25, and a further 6 payments for the month of June totaling $225,756.94. Any questions or comments regarding the financial report? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Bellemare, seconded by Deputy Mayor Laughlin. Be resolved that council accepts as information the unaudited financial statements for the period ending March 31st. And that includes the general fund balance sheet and income statement and the utility fund balance sheet and income statement. Any questions or comments regarding a review of those documents? Call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Daly, seconded by Councillor Ray. Be it resolved that council accepts as information the reserve report for that same period ending March 2026. Questions or comments regarding anything in the reserve report? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Laughlin and seconded by Councillor Sobring. Be it resolved that council accepts as information the building inspector report for the month of June. Any questions or comments regarding the building inspector's report? Seeing none, call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Daly, seconded by Deputy Mayor Laughlin. Be it resolved that we accept the protective services report from the bylaw officer for the month of June. Anything in the bylaw officer's report of note from any member of council? Councillor Bellemare.
Just that some of the category numbers are really large. He fields lots of questions. So I don't know, Lisa, if you want to sort of just give us an idea of the kinds of questions that he's getting a lot of.
He gets questions about parking requirements. He gets questions about swimming pools, what's required for pools. He gets questions about grass. Some people are, reporting grass is too tall on neighbors' properties in their neighborhood. There's been a lot of, you'll see there's also a large number here for enforcement notices, because he's been doing a tour with our admin assistant, giving out grass notices and notices for hedges and vegetation overhanging the back lanes and the sidewalks. So it's definitely the season for overgrowth right now, and that's what he's targeting at the moment.
Anyone else? Call for the question. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bellemare, seconded by Councillor Ray, that we accept the protective services report for animal services for the month of June. Any questions regarding animal services? All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Sobring. Be resolved that we accept information minutes from the Intermountain Watershed for their regular board meeting for May, and the Dauphin Vet Services District Board amendments to the AGM and their regular meeting of June the 19th. Questions or comments regarding any of these? All in favor? Opposed? Seeing none, carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Laughlin and seconded by Councillor Daly. Whereas on June 29th and 30th and July 1st, the city of Dauphin experienced significant rainfall resulting in widespread overland flooding, sewer system capacity issues, stormwater drainage challenges, and impacts to public infrastructure and private property. And whereas the severity of the event required the exercise of emergency powers under the Emergency Measures Act to protect the health, safety, and welfare of residents and to safeguard municipal infrastructure, and whereas pursuant to Section 11-2 of the Emergency Measures Act, the mayor declared a state of emergency for the city on July the 1st due to the urgent circumstances requiring immediate action. Be it resolved that council accepts as information the declaration of a state of local emergency made by myself on July the 1st pursuant to the Emergency Measures Act. Questions or comments regarding that? Councillor Sobray.
Yeah, just a question. Is that just a formality that we read that into the minutes every time a state of emergency is declared? We do it at the... Okay.
Yeah,
certainly. There's two ways in the Emergency Measures Act that we can declare a state of emergency. One is through a council meeting, and the other is by the mayor. As per our procedures, we need 48 hours notice to call an emergency council meeting. So in most cases, they're usually declared by the head of council, mayor or reeve. We wanted to read that into the record so that we have public transparency for that.
Thank you. So call for the question. All in favor? Opposed and carried. Moved by Councillor Bellemare, seconded by Deputy Mayor Loughlin. Whereas municipalities throughout the Parkland experienced significant impacts as a result of the 3-day flooding event, including damage to roads, bridges, drainage infrastructure, sewer systems, public facilities, agricultural land, private property, and the temporary closure of the Dauphin Regional Health Centre, significantly affecting access to healthcare throughout the region. And whereas on July the 6th, municipal leaders, CAOs, municipal emergency coordinators from communities across the affected area met to discuss the ongoing impacts of the flooding event, identify common recovery challenges, and establish shared priorities for regional advocacy. And whereas participating municipalities jointly prepared a letter to provincial and federal representatives requesting continued support for disaster recovery, enhanced flood forecasting and river monitoring, improved emergency communications, infrastructure renewal, agriculture recovery, strengthened emergency management resources, and the timely restoration of full services at the Dauphin Regional Health Centre. Be it resolved that Council accepts as information the Parkland Region Flood Response and Recovery Advocacy Letter dated July 10th and the accompanying media release. Further be it resolved that Council acknowledges the importance of continued collaboration among Parkland regional municipalities and supports the ongoing regional advocacy efforts to secure provincial and federal assistance for flood recovery, infrastructure renewal, emergency preparedness, timely restoration of full services at the Regional Health Centre, and long-term community resilience. Any questions or comments regarding this resolution? I'd like to state that I obviously was attendance to all these meetings along with Charla and Conrad, and it was loud and clear that at the meeting that the municipalities in our area just got hammered, as bad as our situation was, though, I don't want to be too flippant in saying we weren't the worst as a community infrastructure. However, we may have the most significant challenge because of the regional health center being in our city. So it's this kind of balanced situation of we had communities that were literally cut off from other communities, major evacuations of citizens, all kinds of rural infrastructure damage, and our situation here in the city. But the Regional Health Center obviously was front and center, and we have had tremendous support from all of our neighboring municipalities advocating on our behalf, on our collective behalf, to ensure that that facility gets up back on its feet as quickly as possible. So further to that meeting, I also met, I just had this discussion with the Premier. I've had discussions with the Minister of Health. We've had a meeting with the RHA and Shared Health and the Deputy Minister of Health discussing steps that are being taken. We understand the severity of the situation. We had the opportunity to meet with EMO, OFC, Office of the Fire Commissioner, Federal Minister Rebecca Chartrand, who advocated on our behalf to the Minister of Health federally, to the Minister of Emergency Measures federally. And she also indicated that in addition to the municipal jurisdictions that we've been in contact with, that she has heard from literally every First Nation in this area voicing the same concern, primarily about the health center. So I can advocate publicly and state at this time that we will absolutely be clear and constant with the messaging that the health center needs the attention that it rightfully deserves from all levels of government. So yeah, this is, I hate to have this kind of resolution in a council meeting because of the severity of the circumstances, but I think it's very necessary. So any other comments from anyone? Call for the question, and all in favor? Anyone opposed? Motion is carried. Thank you. Moved by Councillor Ray, seconded by Councillor Bellemare. Whereas the city is constructing the Prairie Park Place Early Learning Center to expand access to licensed childcare spaces and support the long-term needs of families, employers, and the community. And whereas the government of Manitoba, through the Department of Education and Early Childhood Learning, previously entered into a financial assistance agreement with the city dated December 23rd, 2023, to provide funding for the project, which was subsequently amended by council on May the 25th of this year to reflect increased funding and clarify eligible and ineligible project expenses. And whereas the province has approved a further increase in funding from the original approved amount of $6,561,116 to $8,074,527, and has provided an amended and restated financial assistance agreement reflecting the revised funding amounts, updated project terms, which replaces the original agreement and any subsequent amendments. And whereas the city administration has advised that execution of the amended and restated financial assistance agreement is required in order for the city to receive the additional provincial funding, be it resolved that council accepts this information, a memo dated July 13th from the project and development manager recommending that the amended and restated financial assistance agreement between the province and the city for the learning center be approved and executed. Further be it resolved that council agrees with the project development manager's recommendations, approves the amended and restated agreement, and authorizes the mayor and the city manager to execute this agreement on behalf of the city. Questions or comments? Just like to commend Justin, Martine, Charla, Lisa, Scott, everyone who's been involved on managing this project from the onset. And I want to acknowledge the province finally appreciating the issues that we had presented to them. And although there were some delays, if you drive by, there's piles in the ground, there's work going on, and it's happening. So we're finally getting that done. All in favor? Opposed? Carried. Moved by Councillor Daly, seconded by Deputy Mayor Laughlin. Where on June 29th, 30th, and July 1st, the city experienced significant rainfall, resulting in widespread flooding, damage to public infrastructure, and impacts to homes, businesses, and municipal operations. And whereas the severity of the flood required the city to declare a state of emergency to support emergency responses and recovery, and whereas the city has incurred significant eligible costs in responding to and recovering from the flood, and residents, businesses, and property owners have also experienced substantial losses and damages, be it resolved that the city respectfully requests that the province extend disaster financial assistance to the city of Dauphin to assist with eligible public sector response and recovery costs incurred as a result of the flood. Further be resolved that the city respectfully requests that the province of Manitoba extend the DFA to eligible residents, businesses, agriculture producers, and property owners who have incurred eligible losses and expenses as a result of the flood. Questions or comments? Again, this is a procedural step. We do this, and then that kickstarts actions at other levels of government. So Charlotte can make a clarification.
And just to make one more comment further to that, the city right from, I think it might have been even July 2nd, July 3rd, has been in contact with DFA. They know that this resolution was coming, so there should not have been any delays for any residents creating a DFA claim. And we've heard anecdotally that the province is accepting those applications.
Thank you. Moved by Councillor Bellemare, seconded by Councillor Sobring, whereas on the dates indicated, July 29th, 30th, and July 1st, the city experienced significant rainfall. Same as the last resolution, I'll get right to the highlight. And whereas the flood event highlighted the need for improved hydrological information to assist the province and the city in monitoring river conditions, forecasting potential flooding, identifying vulnerable areas, and implementing timely mitigation measures. And whereas there is currently only one river level monitoring station located upstream at the Vermilion Dam and one monitoring station downstream where the Vermilion River crosses Highway 20, with no monitoring of the Vermilion River upstream or within the city to provide real-time information on river flows and water levels. Be it resolved that the city accepts this information, a memo dated July 10th from the city manager recommending that the province install additional flow and water level monitoring stations on the Vermilion River upstream of and within the city, together with the provision of a Vermilion Riverbank elevation data to support flood forecasting and emergency planning. Further be resolved that council agrees with the manager's recommendation and respectfully requests Manitoba Transportation and Infrastructure to install additional flow and water level monitoring stations at strategic locations upstream of and within the city on the Vermilion River in consultation with the city, provide riverbank elevation data for the Vermilion River within the municipal boundaries of the city, and work collaboratively with the city to improve flood forecasting, emergency preparedness, and long-term flood resilience. Questions or comments regarding this resolution? Councillor Daly?
Who, sorry, who monitors the monitor? Like if we put them in and it's monitoring, where does that information go?
So I can maybe just explain a little bit further. When we were trying to take a look at, how high is the river? What is the capacity of the Vermilion River within the city of Dauphin? And how close are we to flooding? We see our neighbors, we see other people in or other communities sandbagging certain areas to different levels and stuff like that. We didn't know where to look for that. We assumed it was there and it was on us that we hadn't found it. Unfortunately, it's not there. There is no Vermilion River monitoring upstream of Dauphin except at the Vermilion Dam. And there's there's nothing in Dauphin, and it's at the Vermilion River at Highway 20 on the other side. So the province, it's the province who monitors the river levels. They have a whole hydrologic department that runs scenarios based on those, like automatically runs it on those levels, and it alerts them when things are happening. So we want to be part of that monitoring system.
Anyone else? Councillor Sobring.
Yeah, maybe this is an unfair question to ask, but would Brandon right now they're experiencing flooding? They're monitoring that Assiniboine. Is that part of the provincial system? And that would be something similar that we would have then.
That's right, and I think that it's important to note our fellow municipalities that are farther downstream. The characteristics of a flood getting to them, they get like 7 to 10 days notice, 2 weeks notice, 20 days notice. We don't, because of the topography in this area, we would not get that kind of notice. So we do have to get that information, be proactive, learn what those levels are so that we can mitigate. And there might have to be some more permanent mitigation measures put in, because we wouldn't get that kind of heads up. Just doing some really quick and dirty analysis with EMO, we would get 24 to 48 hours notice of something happening. So filling up the Vermilion River upstream between the reservoir and Dauphin, and that flood hitting us.
And just part of, sorry, Councillor Bellemare.
No, I was just going to say further to that, because at the beginning of July, our premier did a conference and he had the hydrological manager with him and the AMO manager, and they were predicting Assiniboine River, rising and cresting exactly right now when it's doing. And of course, we've learned through floods, there's now two kinds of floods. Like there's the 2-week predictable, and there's like the, oh my gosh, it's upon us kind of thing. So I'm really pleased that we're going to be part of that system.
And part of this discussion, Council, was predicated Bob, EMO Bob, with the last name this long, was very generous with his time, sort of after the immediate emergency response, while we were debriefing already in City Hall, and you can see along the back wall, we went through a little bit of a workshop scenario with him over what we could do better, what we did do well, what we didn't do at all, which we probably should consider. It was all part of the EMO plan that we have, which is a solid plan. However, there's additional information now because of the circumstances of this event that we can roll into that plan. And this monitoring is one of those very specific things that in the past, we sort of had an idea something might be happening, but we think now with the technology that there is available that we should have that a little bit more concise, have that more reflected in our plan, that becomes one of the things. So before we trigger the emergency it's on, we can have in the plan going, what about, how about? Because we did that evening before the declaration the next morning of the Emergency Act, we were kind of wondering, should we or shouldn't we? And the sort of visuals and other things that we were being told says, it's high and it's crazy, but I think we'll be okay. And then 4 hours later, it wasn't okay. And then, and that's something that, is 4 hours enough time to do something? Well, maybe, depending upon what it might be, depending on what's in place in the future to react. If it's something around the hospital or, we have, some kind of flood mitigation stuff that can happen. So again, we're already doing a bit of a debrief while we're still in the middle of the assessment and the Emergency Act is still in place. Call for the question, unless there's any more comments from anyone. Call for the question, all in favor? Anyone opposed? Thank you. Carried. Moved by Deputy Mayor Laughlin, seconded by Councillor Daly. Whereas on those days mentioned, the city experienced a significant rainfall event, which resulted in widespread flooding, substantial damage to public infrastructure and private property, elevated water levels. The July 2026 flood demonstrated the vulnerability of the city and critical infrastructure, including the Regional Health Center, to flooding associated with the Vermilion River. And whereas many communities have benefited from flood diversion infrastructure designed to reduce flood risks, protect homes, businesses, and essential public infrastructure, and improve long-term community resilience, be it resolved that Council accepts information on memo dated July 10th from the City Manager recommending that the province work collaboratively with the city and neighboring municipalities to evaluate the feasibility of a Vermilion River floodway that would reduce future flood risks while avoiding adverse impacts on surrounding municipalities. Further be resolved that Council agrees with the City Manager's recommendation and respectfully requests the province to undertake in collaboration with the city and the neighboring municipalities the necessary hydrological studies, engineering assessments, planning, design, and construction of a potential Vermilion River floodway to reduce flooding risks, protect infrastructure and private property, and improve the long-term resilience of the parkland region. Questions or comments? Yes, Charla.
So one of the things that we also discussed with EMO was the concept of a floodway, a spillway, a bypass for the Vermilion River. And I really only knew of like the Winnipeg floodway, the Portage diversion. Seemed like it had to be, something massive that was protecting a lot of things. However, talking to EMO, there's communities that have 78 residents that the river is diverted if it goes up above certain levels, or 3,000, 3,500, those kinds of things. So again, when we look at Dauphin being a city and it's the largest urban concentration in the parkland, I think it's valid for us to ask the province to entertain a discussion about this. And EMO made it clear this has to be in consultation with our fellow municipalities. The last thing we want to do is cause more flooding downstream at the cost of saving the city. However, there has to be a trade-off, and it would be in consultation with neighbors.
And just further to that, during the discussion with all the folks around the table the other day, there was a couple of possibilities, routing the river, some of the water, because one of the things that we didn't take into account necessarily was there's water coming out of the park, but there's also water coming from the 12 or 15 kilometers once it's out of the park along the land to the city. And so there's an opportunity to possibly tap into Edwards Creek and Salt Creek on both sides, and to sort of, at a specific level. But again, that affects the arm of Dauphin, that affects arm of Lakeshore. And so again, this would be in consultation, but this is again one of those things was discussed generally as what about, how about, we've had this event, so let's just put some stuff on the table, see what might be worthwhile to discuss. Any other questions or comments? Yeah, Councillor.
Just one question about our existing infrastructure we just built behind the not Best Western, behind the Canway Inn and the cruise land there. So that was supposed to take on some water, and I know there's a specific use case for that? Can you kind of just say how did it do, or did it do what it was supposed to do, or did that help the?
Yeah, so the ponds and the new underground infrastructure in the south end was designed to collect the flow of water that was flowing through that west ditch coming into town. When before any of the addition of the service roads. Yeah. Sorry, West Ditch along number 10 between the park and Dauphin. Before there were service roads, there was large ditches, and those would fill up in the spring, kind of to the point of being full, and flow out of town. With the introduction of the service roads, we don't have that ditch capacity anymore. So we introduced a combination of some retention ponds and some large underground pipes that take the water from that area behind the mall, behind the farm, close to that, adjacent to there, and then east out of Whitmore. And in the height of the large rain event, those ponds did see water, so it did do what it was supposed to do. The water was coming into town. It handled what it could, and then when the pipe system could not handle, it went into the retention ponds. The retention ponds saw water, and then slowly that dissipated through the pipes. So that did function okay. It's not meant to collect water drainage from the west side right in town, and it's not able to do any collection from Vermilion River or anything like that.
Yeah, because I was just curious about those businesses along that chunk of highway. It's going to be the first test for that new built system, right? The service roads and everything. So I was just wondering if any of those businesses got flooded out. But I guess I haven't heard anything, but I presume they're good.
Drove through Main Street South at about 11 o'clock or so, July 1st, and thought, I wonder where the flooding is. Because you drove into town from the south and there was nothing happening. And then as you got to about 7th or so Street South, Avenue South, or 6th, you could see that there was water right here.
All right, call for the question then. All in favor? Opposed? Good. We'll move to council reports and daily or sobering. Who wants to start? Which side? Left? Right? Look at that. Daily lights on first. So we'll start with Councillor Daly. We'll just go in order around the table. You're up, Councillor Daly.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Pretty short. June 22nd, I attended the regular council meeting. July 2nd, I was here for the disaster briefing with the Premier and the MLA/Ag Minister. And this afternoon, I attended the MMF Community Advisory Board meeting at the Friendship Center. That's it for me.
Thank you, Councillor Daly. Councillor Ray.
Thank you, Mayor Boziak. On the 22nd, I attended the last regular council meeting. 24th, we met with members of the RM in Northgate up at the trailhead. On the 13th, today, actually. That's a mistake. That concludes my report. I just wanted to add a couple things that I would like to commend all the city staff and workers that helped clean and get the city up and running again after the disastrous flooding we had last week. The staff and crews went above and beyond in their efforts. It was very well done, and I've heard a lot of good comments about the cleanup and the fact that they were able to take many loads of furniture, etc., out to the dump. So that was very positive. And also, to end on a good note, June 25th to the 28th, I helped out with the 50/50 at Country Fest. And this year we broke our sales record on every night, with our biggest pot on Saturday eclipsing $120,000. And if you happen to have a $50 ticket laying around from Saturday, please check, because that pot still has not been claimed. And that concludes my report.
Mr. Mayor, if I might make a comment regarding the number of loads. I think this was before Saturday, so as of Friday, July 10th, I believe there was approximately 800 loads taken to the landfill, and that was anywhere from a half-ton truck to big tandem trucks. But there was just, we counted the loads, and that was one of the metrics, and I thought that was a number that was worth sharing.
Councillor Bellemare, you're up.
Okay, on June 24th, I went to Northgate Fire Pit Social Time with RM reps, and it was also an opportunity to ride the famous fat bikes. And on June 27th, I rode a bike in the Dauphin Fair Parade. And July 2nd, I attended the disaster briefing with the Premier. Community events, I went to Country Fest. I attended 2 of the days, and great entertainment on all the stages I visited. I thought the board planned an excellent event, and of course the weather cooperated until the very end. And so see you next year. And as disappointing as it was to have the Ukrainian festival canceled, I want to commend the board for their decision-making process. They talked with the key groups they needed to, gave themselves a timeline to make a decision, and they followed through. And this was not easy work. So thank you for keeping everyone safe during these unusual times. And also thank you to city staff and firefighters for all you did to support people during the flood. Through long hours and intense decision-making and highly changeable conditions, you really outdid yourselves with your efforts. And thank you also to the province for all their support through visits and phone calls, getting medical services reorganized while the hospital is being repaired, and providing funds to begin repairs. So my neighbor right now is going to Russell. She's a chemo nurse. And I think the handy van is also involved with chemo and dialysis services being out in Russell. So I was thinking maybe I'll rent my house to be a clinic and go out to the lake for the summer. I'm not sure. Anyways, options, yes. And that concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Stakilo. We're not going to jump over. Councillor Stakilo, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, for myself, also relatively short, June 22nd regular council meeting. I attended at Country Fest this year and just want to commend the organizers and everybody involved. Congratulations on a successful event. It seemed very well attended, great entertainment, and we're able to get the weather to cooperate as best they could for the majority of the event. And I too just want to commend staff for the their involvement over the past little while dealing with the flood and the extended hours, and the communication was great. I heard from a number of people that the information coming out from the city was timely and very well informed, and just want to appreciate all the long hours and commend all staff on their efforts. So thank you very much. And that ends my report.
Thank you, Councillor Stakilo. Deputy Mayor Laughlin.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. For me, that regular council meeting on the 22nd, I too attended both Country Fest and the Dauphin Fair this year. Congratulations to both groups. Again, successful events on both sides there, especially Country Fest. Great to see those grandstands full, especially on Saturday night. On July 2nd, I was at the disaster briefing with the Premier, took part in that as well. And then after that, not too much. Just today we had a chamber meeting with some discussions on the street fair. I won't give anything away just yet. It sounds like it's going to be pushed back, but that's all I'll say. They're hoping to have the event sometime later on this, we'll call it summer. And I won't take up too much time, but I just want to echo again just the great work from city staff with the flooding and the work at the dump as well. I went there on Saturday, and it was a well-oiled machine of getting people in and getting people out, and I thought that went really well again. So again, just great job by the staff and everybody here at City Hall working through that difficult situation. And that ends my report.
Councillor Sobring.
Thanks, Mayor Bosiak. It feels strange going back pre-flood to talk about some of these meetings, but I did attend the 22nd meeting. On the same day, I was at an economic development meeting. On the 24th, I attended an age-friendly meeting. There's an interest and desire to rejuvenate or reactivate that group that formerly operated in Dauphin, and now there's an interest in looking at it again after a bit of a hiatus. And I look forward to being part of that. I was at the mixer with the RM at Northgate. It was an enjoyable evening, and we got to ride some bikes, which is always good. And then I was in the Dauphin Fair Parade. And then, of course, like many people in the city, we had the weather event and we were flooded out. I was also affected, home and businesses, and I know there was a lot of people. But one of the things I could say is Dauphin's a very resilient community. I saw a lot of neighbors helping neighbors and people really just digging in, sweating and working. Big thanks. Again, I don't think we could say thanks too many times. The public works crew, the utility crews, the fire department, city staff, landfill, just the communications, just the ideas, just even paying and first and figuring it out after, the opening up landfill, waste pickup, just letting people know what's up. And yeah, I did appreciate that water ban being lifted and having that shower after a couple days. I think, but other than that, I know that the big priority is going to be on getting our health center back up and running. I know this council is going to work hard, and I'm working with the province and making sure we do everything we can. And also just watching the other awesome projects we have in the queue, so we don't just stop business as usual. It's hard to switch back after extreme. I'm sure all the staff are exhausted, and we just announced the $8 million daycare is being built and they're doing work on it now, and it's feels guilty to be excited about good things happening, but we will have a lot of good things yet. So that ends my report, and just kind of well done everybody who dug in and just pushed us through. Thanks.
Thank you. And yeah, just I'll echo everyone else's comments. It's been a pretty stressful couple weeks. I know that everybody pitched in. Could we do it differently next time? Probably. But the effort that people put in, and everyone that's mentioned, all the emergency services and public works and staff and council members, and Councillor Sobering and I were in a neighbor's basement, schlepping stuff upstairs, and Councillor Ray was helping his family, and Lachlan was helping his neighbors, and Bellemere was happy she didn't have water in her basement, but was helping neighbors, and everybody was just digging in and pitching in, and that's the one thing I just wanted to say about the community, that yeah, there's going to be people that are complaining no matter what happens. I know that there was anguish in that meeting with the Ukraine festival, because they knew that if they kept it on, people would be happy and some people would be very angry. If they canceled it, some people would be happy and relieved, and some people would be very angry. So there's no winners or losers. So what they went through, what other organizations are going through, the businesses that are infected, the people that are out of their homes in Dauphin, the 500 or so households that have significant water damage, the estimated about 1,000 homes that were impacted in one way or another. Like it's overwhelming sometimes, but when everybody pitches in, I think it will all work out in the end. And again, as long as we don't get 6 to 10 inches of rain in a 24-hour period, I think we'll be okay. So with that, call for the question. All in favor of accepting the reports indicate. Anyone opposed? Carried. Thank you. Moved by Deputy Mayor Lachlan, seconded by Councillor Bellemere, that we recess the first part of the meeting at 5:45 p.m. All in favor? Opposed?